Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch, has been a beloved and iconic character throughout her many films and series in the MCU. To explore Wanda's visual evolution, I'm chatting with Marvel Studios Director of Visual Development, Andy Park. What up, Andy?
What's up, Ryan? How's it going?
It's going great. So Andy, you've been working with Wanda since her beginnings in the MCU. What do you think makes her such a strong character?
She is arguably one of, if not the most powerful superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But I think besides her obvious power set that makes her powerful, the thing that makes her such a strong character is more of her journey. We really grow to love this character mainly because of her heart. She has a deep love for her loved ones, starting, obviously with her parents and the tragedy of that, to her brother and Pietro, to eventually Vision, and then her created kids, Billy and Tommy. And I think that is reflected in the visual looks that we've helped establish.
Yeah, and of course, but that's a big process, right? So in those first couple of films, she has a huge evolution and you were right there for it. Andy, could you walk us through some of that process, the design thought that you were going through in those first couple of films?
Starting from her introduction in Avengers Age of Ultron, where she's not a superhero yet, but she's kind of trying to figure out who she is. I knew I wanted to bring in something that really harkened to her classic look, so that when the audience sees it, they're like, okay, I could see that that's a nod to the comic book classic look without going there because it doesn't make sense for the story. So of course the red jacket was kind of a must, but then it becomes about like what type of jacket and what is the actual look? Are the sleeves rolled up? Doing a lot of iterations, and then eventually the costume designer Alexandra Byrne, did an amazing job of actualizing it on Elizabeth Olsen. The next time we got to see Wanda Maximoff was in Captain America: Civil War. So the idea was that she's still not a full-on superhero, so we're not wanting to go there yet. My thinking was taking the things that are iconic about her, the red leather jacket, and just trying to heighten it a little bit. And then eventually Juliana Makovsky, the costume designer, she ran with it, and working with Elizabeth Olsen eventually, the idea of her having like more of a corset underneath the jacket, that kind of was implemented. After Captain America: Civil War, leading up to Avengers Infinity War and in Avengers Endgame, there was no mandate to change or update Wanda's look, so the look that you saw from Captain America: Civil War was maintained all the way through Avengers Endgame.
Well, next we get to see many new looks for Wanda in Marvel Studios' WandaVision, of course. What was it like for you to develop the character's visual identity in new ways here?
WandaVision was one of my favorite projects to lead the visual development team on. There were so many different looks that Wanda went through, and all credit goes to Mais Rubio, the costume designer, because she was responsible for all those different looks from the 60s sitcoms to 70s, 80s, all that kind of stuff. Myself, I was responsible for designing the end suit that you see in the final episode.
Yes, and of course that moment being the debut of the Scarlet Witch. So cool, everybody was waiting for it. What was it like designing that iconic look?
Definitely looking into, the originator in Jack Kirby, as well as John Byrne, and then more modern iterations as well, like Kevin Wada. He did like more of the more contemporary designs with the kind of more bejeweled crown look.
Yes, the crown! We finally got the crown!
I finally get to have my wish and probably the fans' wishes too, right? There was still a question of, will it ever solidify, or will it just be like an effect that you see? And then for me, I'm always pushing, effect is cool, but it's gotta solidify, right? So it's definitely starting with the crown and then iterating on doing so many different versions of the costume. There's a lot of little Easter eggs that I threw in there in the costume. There's some details like in her collar area, a lot of negative space, and one in particular was right around her clavicle, collarbone area, right in the center, where it makes like a little hexagon, and it's definitely a nod to Vision's Mind Stone. Little other details like in her bodice area, there's a W shape, and then it goes to a V, V for Vision. And then throughout the costume, there's a lot of V's throughout. So I thought that was really cool too.
We meet the Scarlet Witch again in Marvel Studios' Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and of course we see Wanda. She's realizing her powers in ways we've never seen before. It's very cool, very scary. Andy, how did you approach the evolution of the Scarlet Witch?
Leading into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, her design was just gonna be the WandaVision costume. It wasn't until later that they decided to add the sleeves to cover that up, and then to what extent is textures added and all that kind of stuff. It was something that eventually the costume designer, Graham Churchyard, did a great job of. I loved how he incorporated the sleeves, but then you see it kind of looks like it's getting corrupted. And then the texture that he gave on the bodice area of the WandaVision suit, you know, looks like it's a crack. It almost looks like it's like a broken heart. It really worked to give her story from like the hero that she became in the final episode in WandaVision to a more villainous spin, a dark, corrupted version of that hero outfit. It all worked for her story.
Well, I think Wanda's story throughout the MCU can really be told through all of her looks. What do you hope that her designs convey most to the viewers?
When I was starting on Wanda, her look, probably 2013, 2014, around there, you know, I had no idea. I don't even know if they knew exactly where she was gonna end up. I think it's always just such a rewarding experience to be able to be part of that journey. We're telling her story, and I'm part of that, you know, even though my part is like more the visuals, but people love seeing these characters, not just reading about them. And that's why you have so many cosplayers that, you know, express their love for these characters and they dress up like them. When people see Wanda and her journey, I hope that they can take those looks and just kind of see how far she's gone. Her story is mysterious, her story is tragic, but it's that story and that whole journey that makes it so powerful. And hopefully, you know, her visuals show that.
They certainly do, Andy. Thanks for chatting with us, and thank you for all your hard work bringing this character to life. Everybody else out there watching, I know you're like me. You want to relive every single Wanda moment. Go watch the entire Marvel Studios catalog streaming right now on Disney+.